Howdy everybody, I'm up here at the top of the farm and I came up here to be able to talk to you and show you about what probably amounts to the biggest blunder that I made on the farm so far. And I've made a lot of them. And actually you shouldn't be afraid of failure. Failure teaches you things. And I certainly learned a lot from this one. So let me get into it. When Lena and I first moved here, we marched ourselves down to the mayor's office in the town to see what the procedure was for getting hooked up to the municipal water system. You know, being city girls, we just immediately assumed that there would be a city water system. Imagine our surprise when we were told that there wasn't enough infrastructure to accommodate us. So, well, I freaked out big time. Fortunately, on the land here, we have a hand-dug well. When the guys were building the house, it was in the summer, and that hand-dug well supplied all the water they needed. And you know, concrete uses a lot of water. So we said, well, you know, maybe it's not as big of a deal as we first thought. There's just two of us and, you know, the dogs. And we just said we'll probably be able to make it okay with just that well for right now, at least. And that turned out to be correct for the first year. On the south side of the farm, the mayor's office had bought land there. It's probably about the equivalent of somewhere close to an acre of land, and he decided that he was going to create a community. Well, obviously those people needed water too, and they weren't going to be accommodated any better than we were, and we didn't have enough in our little hand-dug well to accommodate them, so they decided to dig their own well. And unfortunately, the place that they chose was right next to our well. You're not supposed to do that. There's laws here against doing that, but they did it anyway. And that affected the amount of water that we were getting in our well. Once again, I freaked out again, and I said, we probably still have enough water for us to use in the house with the hand-dug well, but not for the farm. And so I said, well, we're going to do a permaculture thing, and we're going to make a pond. Now, if you take a permaculture design certificate course, one of the first things they'll tell you about harvesting water is you want to harvest it at the highest point of your land as possible, so you could take advantage of gravity to feed the rest of your land. And so that's what I did. On the land, there's a gully that goes all the way from the top to the bottom of the land. And that is an erosion gully. It's actually quite extensive. And so I said, wow, you know, there must be a lot of water that comes down here at some point. And so our first rainy season here, we found out just how profound that was. And it literally comes down, not in a little stream, it comes down like a raging river. So the water collects up in the mountain above us and somehow winds up coming down here. There's two places on our land where it comes in, it combines, and then comes down to the gully, and then goes off our land. And I said, oh, wow, you know, this is fantastic. This is perfect because I don't want all that water to be leaving our land so fast anyway. I want to spread it and soak it. So I had some guys come here and they dug out this large pond area. This is the area where the pond was dug. And you can see now that it looks like a lake of clumping grass. Very tall grass, by the way, you know, somewhere around 2 meters high. So it'll give you an idea of just how deep the pond was going to be. And you could see a ridge of that clumping grass at the top. That's where the top of the pond was. And it went all the way around. So it was designed to hold quite a bit of water. And that was, you know, fantastic. But there was one problem. And that problem was that I was so freaked out about getting the water that I didn't take time to think, wait a minute, where is this water coming from? At what speed is it coming? And so we finished, the guys finished digging the pond. And what happened? The first rain, the pond filled up without any problem. We had a nice spillway, and the spillway functioned fine, and everything was fine, except that the pond didn't actually hold water. It leaked. Well, that's a fairly common thing, and so I said, okay, well, we'll deal with that. Well, in the meantime, the next rain was what you call one of those 100-year rains, and that deposited rain for 3 days. Enormous amount of rain. And this pond simply was not built to be able to take that volume of water coming down. And it was a huge volume of water coming. And so the pond failed, and once you get a little failure, it becomes an enormous failure very quickly. And that's what happened. And so I abandoned the pond project. But that taught me a big lesson, because it made me really think at that point. I said, what didn't I do correctly? And there were a lot of things. But one of them was this idea of not understanding the volume of water that was coming. So I studied, and I realized that the real problem was the erosion. And how do we stop that erosion? Because the gully just keeps getting deeper and deeper every time that the water comes down. So the solution to that was to think like a beaver. Well, of course, a beaver would never come here anyway, because there's too much of an incline on the land, and there's a lot of reasons why beavers wouldn't choose to build a dam on this property. But let's just say they decided to do it anyway. And I said, how would they do it? Well, they'd start down at the bottom, not at the top. And they'd build a system of dams, keep going up and up and up, higher and higher. And each one of those would collect silt, slow it down, allow it to spread and soak, and eventually we might be able to literally fill in the gully. Let nature fill it in for us with silt. And so I started that, and I'm still in the process. This is a long, long project of building these gabions. And for those of you who don't know what a gabion is simply like a rock wall that's designed to hold water, or not really to hold it, but to just slow it down. And in the process, it traps some silt behind it. And that's what we're trying to do. I'll also show you how we use clumping grass to help give stability to those gabions. And let me just say that if you find these videos to be informative or useful to you, please consider clicking the like button so that other people can be exposed to it who also might benefit. That's how YouTube decides to spread the video to other people, is if people are clicking the like button. So please help me out in that way. If you like the material that's on the channel, please, the way that you could support this channel and help keep me going, making the videos, is by subscribing. Thanks. Okay, so this is where I started, with a simple rock gabion that was only maybe 2 or 3 rocks high. And each time the torrential rain and the water came down here, it backed it up a little bit. There was a little bit of silt behind it, and I would come through afterwards and put another level of rocks. The secret to building one of these things is not to try to do it all at once. You do it gradually, and you see where the weak points are, and you can do it. You can see this whole thing is expanded all the way over here, and you can see just how much silt has been deposited over the period of a couple of years. It really is quite remarkable. But it's completely filled up. There is easily a meter of dirt has been deposited just behind this gabion wall that I built. And again, the secret to it is not trying to build it all at once. You build a little bit at a time, you let some silt deposit, and then you put the rocks behind. And so what you do is you wind up building something that's very sturdy. Now, as you can see, the water comes down here. It's usually coming at a pretty good clip by the time it gets down here, but this stops it. It almost stops it completely, and it spreads out all over the place. And then it still goes over what now is a waterfall. Now we're coming up here. Here is a gabion that I built a year ago that has to be rebuilt. This one didn't hold. There was too much pressure on it. But look behind it. You know, right behind the wall, there still is quite a bit of silt that deposited. So it succeeded, but it didn't succeed as well as I wanted it to. What I wanted it to do was to fill up the gully up to the next gabion. And you can see it there. Now here we are at the next one. And this one took quite a beating as well. But that's okay. We don't worry about that. I'm going to come through in the next few days and fix this up. And how do I fix it? I put more rocks behind. I'm not trying to build a wall. I'm simply trying to hold the water, slow it down, and spread it out, and to build what amounts to terraces. And the interesting thing, that there's some clumping grass. And this grass right here, this clump, I actually planted this here on purpose to slow the water down. Now when I come back here, I'll put more clumping grass around here. So the other day I did a video about getting rid of clumping grass. Well, this is one thing that you can do with it. You can actually plant it in these gabions, both in front and behind it, and it will give some stability to the gabion. Now here's another gabion right up here. So the whole idea behind this is to create terraces. But I'm not trying to build the terraces. I'm going to let nature build the terraces for me by depositing silt behind these gabions. Now here we are again at the next gabion. As you'll notice, we still have quite a bit to fill up here, but behind this one, we already have quite a bit of silt that is deposited behind this one. And one of the reasons why is because it's coming from two different directions. The water's coming from in here, and it's coming from here, and you could see, here's another gabion. I was just working on this the other day. You can actually see where I've planted a couple of sprigs of clumping grass right here. I'll put more in here and I'll put some behind as well. The idea again is not to create a wall, not to create a dam. We don't care if the water comes and goes over it and moves some of these rocks. We'll just move them back and put more rocks here. And what we'll do is we'll fill these gullies up with terraces. And so it's important to remember that when you're building gabions, you don't want to start by building a big wall. You just want to put a few rocks there and look and see what happens. That's what beavers do. They don't build the entire dam. They build a little bit and then they observe it, and then they build a little more and they observe it some more, and on and on and on until they finally have this really impressive dam that they've built. Well, we're not trying to actually build a dam, but the gabion, we have to approach it the same way. That's it, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.